My name is Kris Goto, and I'm a pen and ink artist based in Honolulu, and I also do murals. I've always been doing art since forever, and at some point in my adolescence, I decided to kind of take it more seriously. So I've lived in 3 places, so that was Japan, New Zealand, and Hong Kong. Those were my formative years. And I believe that Japan definitely introduced me to the art of manga. So I've always wanted to be a manga artist. I aspired to become one. And when I moved to New Zealand, I was introduced to the art of Maori tattoos. So then I was copying a lot of the works from, just textbooks from classrooms and stuff through my school years in New Zealand. In a way, when I moved to New Zealand, I was surprised to find that there's more to art than just cartoons and manga. So then I think in a way I kind of broke out of that comfort zone a little bit to find that there's more to it, and then I should probably be not too stubborn, but also be more adventurous in exploring different kinds of mediums and different kinds of perspectives. And so New Zealand, I think, really opened up a lot of opportunities for me in terms of what I can choose to do in my artistic journey. And then when I moved to Hawaii, I was introduced to surfing. So then I was surfing a lot, and just the abundance of nature and the people and the community really inspired me here. It's been about close to 20 years since I moved to Hawaii, so it's been a very inspiring journey so far. Hawaii is a great example of cultures kind of coming in together into a pod. I know certain places where different cultures kind of, coexist, but then they don't blend. But in Hawaii, it's so special that there's like a blend of everything. So it's so unique, and I think you can only find that type of blending and, kind of a harmonious blending in Hawaii. If I hadn't lived in Hawaii, and if I had gone somewhere else, I feel like my art would take a very different turn, because it's so susceptible to my environment and what I feel in that environment. But because I have been in Hawaii for about 18 years, I kind of like slowly opened me up to the possibility of colors, for instance, right? I used to be just black and white. But because Hawaii has so much colors in that, the nature, it took 18 years for me to be able to be comfortable with accepting colors into my artwork, or conceptualizing certain things, or being able to see things in colors. So in a way, I feel like Hawaii changed me into more of a colorful person than I was when I moved here. My identity I'm still trying to figure that out, but then I'm definitely very whimsical, and it really shows in the kind of artwork that I'm interested in illustrating. But living in Hawaii, because there's so much Japanese influence, I felt like I belong here. Because I see things and I hear things and I experience things that reminds me of the culture that I grew up in. So I think in that way, Hawaii definitely encouraged and nurtured my respect that I have from where I'm from. Until when I was in my 20s, I never really was proud of the fact that I was from Japan, because I spent a lot of my years trying to fit into different places. So when I was in my late 20s, I went to see a kabuki show at the Kennedy Theater at UH, and I was just mesmerized with the art of the costume design, the set design, like the attention to details that these people would have on stage. Then I was more like, wow, Japan is an amazing place. And so that was when I decided that I needed to respect where I'm from more and be more mindful of my heritage and my own culture. Every place that I've stayed and lived and was exposed to, I take a little bit of each place and kind of made it into my own self. So I definitely developed that pen and ink, like detailed art through the art of Māori in New Zealand, tattoos. And the teacher that I had, the art teacher that I had would expose me to all these different kinds of mediums too, like painting, oil painting, 3D art, spatial art, you know, she was like, she gives me a space I can do something with it. It's like, I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna give it a try. So I think every person, every place, and every culture that I was in and immersed myself in, I think it influenced me a lot in now that I think about it in hindsight. On a smaller scale artwork, my process usually consists of, you know, usually when I'm inspired, it usually happens when I'm about to fall asleep or when I'm like just looking out the window or driving, for instance. Then I would write it down on a piece of paper or like text it to me, because if I don't do that, my inspiration or ideas just fly away from me and I never get it back. So I try to put it down on paper. Then I would bring it to my studio, and if it's the right moment and the timing to execute those ideas, then I just roughly do like a little rough, super tiny rough sketch, because when I'm inspired, I see the image as a finished art. When I do murals, I do sketch what I'm gonna paint first. You know, I take the photo of the actual wall, then sketch on it so that I can present it to the clients so that they can visually see what I'm seeing. But then if I'm giving a wall, for instance, and say, you know, they're like, do whatever you want, I might still sketch because it's such a big format. I probably need to like figure it out how am I going to execute it. So sketching is a must for mural. The advice I would give to anyone that are kind of contemplating an artistic career would be to stay true to themselves, because I think along the way of your career, you're easily influenced by people who hired you to do certain things. You kind of bend to accommodate those requests, but at the end of the day, when you do that, I feel like you don't produce the best work. You know, at the end of the day, I feel like artists should listen to their instincts more when they are working, when art turns into work. The advice I can give to young artists is to understand that you're the only one that can give the right answers to your own artwork. You know what I mean? So if it feels like it's done, it's done. If it feels like it needs more work, it needs more work. You know, if the orientation is a certain way, and most people are like, no, it should be this way. It's like, no, you should say, no, this is just the way it is. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of the times, even adults, they tend to listen to other people's advice or something when they're creating their own artwork. But I feel like you as an artist is the only one that can give that right answer, and you have it. So, you know, listen to it more and embrace it more. Another advice would be to be able to compartmentalize your creative time to your daily life. We're always consistently thinking about ideas, writing down sketches, thinking about what process we need to work on tomorrow. Like, we're consistently creating because that's just the way we are. You know, I don't think I've ever stopped creating because that's just the way I am and that's what I am. So for me personally, it helped me greatly when I allot myself time of the day to not do art, to be more of in a healthier mental state of mind. So compartmentalizing, kind of making a schedule, it's hard. You as a business owner have to wear those hats. Now, compartmentalizing really benefited me in that I block out some parts of the week in just creating art. And so I don't write emails, I don't go anywhere, I just stay in my studio and just keep doing art. So that really helped me in terms of being efficient with creating, because I am always creating, so it's hard to turn it off sometimes. And when it's on all the time. And so that's when I tend to forfeit other hats that I need to be wearing to keep the business going, right? So then that's why that advice was helpful to me, because it was an advice that was given to me because I was having a hard time finishing certain things, or I forget to email someone back, or I forgot there were deadlines coming. It's like you need to make time to do certain things so that when you're outside of that time, when you're in that time, you're not going to do anything other than that thing, right? So I think as a working artist, you really need to value the time that you create. I have been given that opportunity to teach art and all those things, but I personally would not know what to teach because I've never been taught. I feel like it's very difficult for me to verbally and patiently tell other people what to do. But you know what I can teach is my experience and how I felt, the struggles that I've had. So this year I actually had a handful of opportunities to go to different schools to talk about my art and my journey to students. My first mural was in 2013. I did it for Powwow, Hawaii, which is now known as Hawaii Walls. It was kind of like it was probably the scariest feeling I've ever felt and had to deal with as an artist, because now I'm forced to conceptualize and execute an artwork that is like 500 times more like the size than I would normally work on. I think as an artist, I think it's important for you to challenge yourself in doing something that you've never done before, or it makes you feel afraid or you feel fear, because I think that's when you grow, right? And although, you know, murals, I still get a little bit antsy and scared when I do any murals. I'm still practicing the skills and learning the most efficient way to do certain things, but I definitely love to do murals because it challenges me. But my home base would be the art, you know, within the paper, because I did start as a pen and ink, you know, pen on paper artist, so that's kind of like my nice cozy spot. One of the most memorable mural that I worked on was for the YWCA. For their 120th anniversary, which is extremely historic in itself. But through that process of conceptualizing the mural for the YWCA, I got to learn a lot about the history of, you know, the building, but also like what took place to establish YWCA in Honolulu and its history and the members and all these wonderful, powerful women that, you know, strong women that came together. So that was one of the most memorable mural I worked on in the past, alongside the ones that I've done in Kalihi for Hawaii Walls. I've done one in Palama Settlement at Pu'uhale Elementary School in Kalihi. I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be able to like learn about the community and meet the people that live there and learn about, you know, their lives and, you know, their stories. So it was monumental in a way that those murals really stayed with me for very deep in my heart. I think the exhibit Monumental Summer, when I was invited to participate, I thought it was a great idea. One theme and 5 artists, but then each of us kind of interpreted their own way. Summer is that heat, like the energy, excitement, but I think everybody experiences each season very differently, and personally, my artwork is heavily influenced by what I feel at that moment. So for this exhibition, I kind of wanted to wait until I get there to see what I would do. So there were no sketches. I kind of wanted to basically improvise what based on what I would feel at that moment. So I actually didn't know that these people are gonna be on my artwork. But the title of the artwork is What I Wanted to Say This Summer. You know, that moment in the season where, you know, kids are off school, you know, you have friends, family time, you know, but then there are all these emotions and feelings. So they're, instead of saying it, they're kind of giving birth to another version of themselves. You know, people take it the wrong way, so then they're gulping it down, like a cycle of kind of swallowing the things that you wanted to say. It's like a vicious cycle of, I'm gonna keep eating so that I can stop thinking of the things that I should say that are wrong, that can come across wrong and all that stuff. I know it looks like I went through like a very monumental summer in a way that it's like negative, but it's actually a very positive piece for me because it reflects on, you know, the moments that everyone goes through. I would like people to feel in front of my artwork. I want them to want to question what's happening. I want people to question, basically just like really think about what's happening in the art. Like, you know, there's a lot of things that's happening. It could be simple. I might have a story about each piece, but then what I would really want people to feel is that sense of kind of like, what's happening in here? Like, why is it this way? Why is that color there? Why is that person bathing in a papaya? Like, is she a small person or is it a big papaya? Who knows? But like the sense of questioning, you know, when you're kids, you question all the time, you know, like why is this happening? Why do we have to do this? How does it work? You know, I feel like as we grow up, I feel like we lose that sense of curiosity. So I want people to feel that sense of immense curiosity when they see my artwork. I really appreciate when I get to see other artists working because, for instance, I've known Kate and Bose through, you know, painting murals here and there for Hawaii Walls mainly, but I never really got to see them painting in real life because everyone is painting at the same time, so we're never around each other when we're painting. So it was so educational for me to be able to stand and like see their process and talk about their inspiration and their brush strokes and how their processes are. I thought that was really awesome and educational for me and inspiring. But then even Erik, I've never met until this exhibit. I was looking at him just mixing paint together to like using the stick to stabilize his arm to like those minute details. I'm like, wow, I can't do that. But and even Tom, his like really meticulous painting and all of the other four artists I very much respect and admire. I kind of want to do this more often because I feel like there's very little space for improvisation and for me to really reflect on what I feel or what I think about sometimes. So I think having this, it was kind of like a therapy session for me almost, because I would come in, like it's like a very freeing and liberating feeling for me to be able to just be in the present moment and then be able to just immerse yourselves in that moment of creating. It was a special moment. My name is Kris Goto and this is My Monumental Summer. Okay.